Hello.
Welcome back. It is full on summer.
It is.
We skipped the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, I think most of the country's in a heat wave right now, if you're listening from the United States.
And yeah, at the same time as when we're recording. But yeah, it's crazy. It is. I'm thankful for air conditioning right now. Let's say that. But hey, I wanted to talk today about comparison in cancer. And just kind of the effects it has on us. And I just wanted to talk about it a little bit. I think there's a fine line between looking at other people's stories but then kind of expecting your path to be the same, right? Does that make some sense?
I think I know where you're going here, yes.
Okay. See, this is you're always completely in the dark, so I love that you just pick it up as we go. I mean, yeah, I think we try so hard in our brains to organize, right, what category we fit into and all of that kind of stuff, but I don't know how helpful it is in the end. Would you agree with that?
Well, I think it's human nature.
For sure.
To keep us alive and to compare.
Right.
And to do all of that. That's part of us. You can't turn that off. But where are you going with this?
Well, I think we can't kind of say, oh, well, this person has my type of cancer and this and that, try to line up all of these categories and expect the same result necessarily. There might be some indicators that would help, that would lead them on the same road a little bit, but I just feel like people are different and cancers are different, even when they're subtyped and all of that stuff.
For sure.
And so, I guess what concerns me is that I don't want people feeling like when they're comparing themselves to somebody else and something goes wrong, that means they're done for. Or that, I feel like it can lead a little bit to a victim mentality, or it can lead to somebody feeling powerless.
Which I understand. We do compare. And you're out there and you're saying, well, this is exactly what I have. And, oh, I found people who have the same thing. Mm-hmm. And their cancer's stable and mine is not. Mm-hmm. What the hell?
For sure.
That has to be the reaction. How can it not be the reaction? Which the truth is, there's so many more variables than just what gets talked about.
Right.
With as far as the type of cancer you have, which as far as your genetics, your immune system. There's so many more variables than what gets talked about.
Right. And so I guess that's what I want. That's what I'm talking about. It just is one of those things that is so easy to get deflated in your journey when something doesn't go wrong and you are comparing yourself to somebody else, right?
Yeah.
And then the question is how do we take that information and use it for good, right? That's kind of my whole purpose always, is how do we take information and use it to our advantage? I think that's the crux of who I am, right?
I agree. Yeah.
So when I see and hear about the comparison between people, it makes me cautious, or it makes me concerned about, okay, how can I help people maybe think about that differently?
For example,
I'll hear things like somebody will say, very common, they'll ask me what treatment are you on, or what treatments did you do? And I don't even feel like that's a fair thing to tell somebody at this point, because some of my treatments have been researched and proven to be the less effective way, right, to do something. Right. So, like when we talk about the stem cell, that's the big one. And some people will just latch onto that, like that was the thing. That was probably why she's here. And I feel like it's even more, because it's not obtainable, it becomes even more of a kind of oh, this is really it. That's, I would be okay if I had access to that. So,
which I get, because, I mean, this is going to sound crazy. As life-threatening as some of these treatments are, and that is the case. I mean, some of them are life-threatening. I believe the reason why you're still here, I believe treatment was 20% of the reason why you're still here. 80% had nothing to do with the treatment.
Yeah.
I believe that. I strongly believe that our immune system, therefore our brains, play a much bigger role in whatever treatment you're doing, in getting an outcome in the positive way, meaning directing your immune system to actually do its job.
Yeah.
You can't study what I just said. That's the problem. It's similar to say, well, this person is still around because we prayed for them.
Yeah.
Well, that can never be proven or disproven.
Right.
That fact right there, when they are still around. So what, I've just been an observer for 26 years now, and watched it, and through this podcast and through other things, I've just always come back to, that is the X factor that I compare. Now, I am not on these chat rooms. I am not I don't hear...
Nor am I anymore. I mean, honestly.
But you still are around people with cancer way more than me.
Yeah.
Meaning I'm never. But that's what I think the variable is. So going back to that, when something doesn't go your way, I think that's really hard to stay in that mental process that's positive.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm thinking about when you're talking about that is also, it's like we as humans don't want to set ourselves up to be disappointed, yep. Right? And so therefore we won't go all in on something.
It's the hardest thing to do in the world.
Right? Because what if we fail?
Yep.
And that's where, again, one of these things where I just go, what's the alternative?
Mm-hmm. Because most of the time we're talking about a career, a relationship, something like that. Right. Well, this even
a drug, even a drug.
No, I'm saying most of the time it's a career. I don't want to say I want to be the president of the whatever, because if it doesn't happen, people are going to come back to me. Yeah. Or in a relationship, I don't want to go all in because they could dump me. And hey, you're still alive in both of those situations.
Right.
So.
Right. But in a cancer journey, you go all in on a drug and it's not the drug for you. I mean, so you go to the next drug, mm-hmm. and you go all in again. That's how I feel. But I often don't see that. I see the hesitation and the holdback and the emphasis on the negative parts of a drug versus the, mm-hmm. the positive parts.
Yeah, right.
Right?
I get it.
So, I don't know. I just I feel
Don't you think it's really hard to go all in on, say, a drug and it doesn't work? Oh, go all in on the next drug. Oh, it doesn't work. Oh, let me go all in. There is a point where, I don't want to say it's impossible, but My gosh.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, but I think there's a ramp up period, and there's a, hopefully a time where you're on it, and then there's a disappointment. But I think it's still worth the journey to do that. Like,
Do you say, I mean, when you say all in, you're talking about yourself, not convincing others.
yeah, I'm talking about myself.
Yeah. And there is a difference there. You're talking about, I'm going to stand on the mountaintop and go, this is it. And this drug is going to do it. And I'm going to live and I'm going to thrive. And I'm going to do this because of this. And I'm just so super positive. And I'm going to tell everybody, is different than I believe this.
I believe it's working.
Yes, you're right.
And just, I believe it's working. That's the thing. Like, I believe that my body is taking this on well. I believe my immune system is doing its part. I believe those, that it's all working in a relationship together. Those are the things for me. Or, if you think about like a cancer cell and, whatever this medicine is, like, and you try a drug and it works for, whatever, it doesn't, maybe it just didn't fit perfectly. You know what I mean? Like, okay, what's the perfect fit? That's what happened with my drugs,
Yep.
And I just think it's important to consider, like, I don't know, maybe every episode comes back to this, like what you're thinking about and how you're perceiving that, and I think when you look at the greater, when you look at the population of people who have cancer, it's almost too much information to be able to say, oh, well, I don't know if I just feel like we're more unique than that to kind of try to plug ourselves into the masses of, what's happening. And I don't know if it's beneficial.
I totally agree. I think, cancer treatment today obviously looks a lot different than 25 years ago. But in the big scheme, it's a lot the same.
I agree. It's kind of astounding to
There's
me.
new drugs and there's new orders of what drugs are given and that. But in the end, we're still chopping breasts off and we're still radiating things and we're still doing chemo. We're still doing a lot of those things. The immunotherapy's come a long way, and that's awesome. I hope that 25 years from now, there is a much bigger emphasis on the patient and the power of the patient in the immune system. And I'm not just talking about immunotherapy.
I agree.
I'm talking about the brain of the patient. I think a lot of people have to be taught that. And a lot of people have to practice that. And I think it's almost, it's relearning how to consider things or relearning how to take something on. Not everybody's born that way. I think you were. No, or you learned it. I don't know.
I think it's born that way, but also so desperate.
Yeah.
I felt like
a lot of people are desperate.
I know, but I felt that is what motivated me. I had no other options. I felt like, I mean, I literally, we've talked about this before, but just kept failing everything. Like everything kept getting worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, and your response was to go the opposite way. Most people's responses when everything goes bad and worse and worse and worse is I quit. I give up. Mm-hmm. That is the normal way that people do things.
Well, so let's talk about the not normal way. That's
they have
why
to be
we're
taught
here.
that. Yes, that's what I'm saying is that's where I'd love to see, yes, you go into a hospital, you go to your oncologist for the first time, they give you this bad news that you do a bunch more tests. Mm-hmm. I think it should be mandated that you now enter into this class.
Yeah.
Not mandated. I think the option should be given that you enter this class, and that class is all about the power of you.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah, I'm sure insurance companies will be like down to pay for that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's part of the problem.
I know. It's just this whole. I agree.
But I guarantee a class is a lot cheaper than a chemotherapy drug.
Oh, but we can go down that. I agree. I agree. So I think that's why we're here, right? Is to talk about there is another option.
Mm-hmm.
And it is about changing yourself in the midst of society who hasn't changed. And in the midst of, it is your choice. Like the person with cancer, how you handle things. And it doesn't mean that every day is going to be perfect, but it does mean that you're going to think about what's going wrong and how to make it better, or what you have control of, or all of these things, how your perception of what is happening can impact you, how it impacts you. And do you believe that what you are thinking and telling yourself matters?
I totally agree. I don't think a lot of people have the tools to know how to do that. This is what I keep coming to. I don't think the average person has the tools, and they can listen to this right now and go, "Oh yeah, I want to do that. Mm-hmm. That sounds good." Like, but you got to have the tools to do that, and a lot of it honestly goes back to that 5 to thrive.
Yeah.
And those are the tools, and only 1/5 of that was a medicine. I mean, hospitals cut stuff off and give drugs.
I know.
That's what hospitals do.
And we put all our faith in them.
100%. It's 100% on what drugs and cut this out of me.
Yeah.
And that's what cancer is. And we did the same thing 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Now, new drugs are coming in, and those are good. The immunotherapy is really good. But
it's so interesting for you to say it that way, because you think about, like, that's when we look at 5 to thrive, right? Mm-hmm. That's 20%.
Yeah.
So you've got 80% other things that you could be accessing, pushing into, to help you change.
To help the 20.
To help the 20.
Help that 20%.
Absolutely.
It's... Yeah. It will be so much more effective if that 80% the other things that you can be doing are effective.
Yeah.
So going back to the comparison,
Right. So we can't. So when somebody, when a drug doesn't work for somebody, besides the fact that might just not have been the right drug, you also have this other large percentage of what else? What are the other factors, right? What are the other things that are going on in this person's world to make it be something that doesn't work, right?
Yep. And in chat rooms and in places that can get negative or they can be frustrated, and I get that. They're frustrated, so they want to go on and say, well, wait, this didn't work for me. It's not an environment to go, well, what else are you doing, or to do that.
It's a breeding ground of negativity and victim mentality oftentimes. I mean,
which, if you guys have listened to, the mental side of this, the opposite is what can be effective, not that. I mean, that is literally a path I hope you don't want to go down. I mean,
right.
And we all know, I mean, there's just some people out there that are more negative than positive. There's some people out there that are just seemed like constantly positive. Heather is not a constantly positive person.
What?
No, I mean, I'm saying
right.
You're not like all the time.
Oh,
the
no,
world is
I
great.
wouldn't even. Yeah.
Probably on the other side of that midpoint right there.
I think I'm pretty based in like reality. Like I am not a Pollyanna by any means. I'm not. Right.
But what we're saying could come off as, no, everything is great, and that's not what we're saying. Is we're talking about the effectiveness of something. We're talking about giving power to yourself and letting yourself, your body, your immune system do its job. Talking about that.
We're also talking about like the things that like the other things that we have grown up hearing. Like you are, surround yourself with the people that like can have the greatest influence on you in a positive way, right? Mm-hmm. Like you're the result of your 5 closest friends. Well, if you are spending your time with 5 women who are struggling, I mean, man, you're going to have to be stronger than anybody to fight through that and come out on the other side of it. You're not giving yourself any type of advantage,
So, I mean, what's your opinion on like those support groups? I mean,
because
the idea is good.
I think there is some merit and helpfulness in sharing your story, in being able to kind of release that, mm-hmm. right? But I think the receivers of that don't have to be somebody who is in your shoes necessarily. Or I think it's something where if you are, I just don't know. I worry about the receivers, right? I worry about not the person who is trying to unload. I needed to unload so often. Mm-hmm. But when I was truly in it, I couldn't receive that from somebody who also needed to unload, right? I needed somebody who was strong and healthy to be able to take that burden on with mm-hmm. me, mm-hmm. The other, I will say, like, I wasn't in a position where I could find people who were alive.
That was a big difference.
Right? It is different now. But I don't know that we have perfected support groups in any way, shape, or form. And I think, literally it took me years and years and years to be able to give back without it stressing my soul. Mm-hmm.
No, I know now. I do know. I
know you've been through it with me, and it's just.
Now, is it true, or can there be a positive of somebody who is in it, mm-hmm. that can be a positive for them? Can they thrive off of that? I think a possibility?
If you can take the good from it, or if those groups are celebrating wins versus like, hey, great scans or whatever that mm-hmm. is, if there's some acknowledgement of that versus the oh my God, I'm here again, mm-hmm. I got progression or whatever it looks like,
Because I think about like nutrition or fitness support groups, mm-hmm. Pretty positive. Like mm-hmm. there's that accountability factor in a support group.
Yeah.
And there's downs, there's whatever, we're talking about fell off the wagon type of thing, and the idea is that the other people pick them up.
That's really an interesting concept that you say that, because I think, honestly, what I feel like most groups are lacking is accountability. Mm-hmm. Because nobody wants to say, hey, but, I know your life sucks, but have you? Right? Nobody wants to say that.
Yeah, that's what I do for a living.
And, honestly, it's not meant, it doesn't have to be a negative thing. Like, you guys are looking for solutions, right? We are looking for solutions. But if somebody offers them, and I will say, I think I've gotten thwarted many times. Like, I'll offer a solution, people will come back with, yeah, but this, and it's like, okay, but what can you do? Like, right? Mm-hmm. They're still, and I don't know that groups generally have somebody in that position to offer accountability and,
well, yeah,
advice.
Right. You're right.
I mean, and that's a big part of it. Like, why be in a group? Like, what's it providing you? What is it giving you? If a group is just providing you some, okay, they understand me, some understanding, that's
a place to vent.
A place to vent. But like, you got to move past that. Like,
I agree. I mean, I think there needs to be some accountability, some education, some, if there's no help in it, there is power in venting. I mean,
yes, I totally agree.
You've already said you did that, and it's just, to be the ventee is tough sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's an unreasonable ask for somebody else who's going through the same thing, especially at the same kind of time period. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to be 20 years ahead of somebody else.
Right.
But yeah, I think we can do it better and different, and
I do too.
And that's why we are here, and we hope that's why you're here too, right? Sometimes, I'm just gonna be very honest, sometimes I feel like it's just friends and family listening to this podcast. And that is not, okay, but also that's not the intent of this. If you're watching on YouTube, you just saw Larry's eyes bug out of his head. We did this to help women with cancer. And I will say specifically metastatic cancer, but it doesn't mean that other people can't benefit, other people with cancer. We did this to help walk the road with you in a way that we can provide, hopefully, some things that are helpful, but also help you feel seen, right?
Yep.
And yeah, that's I hope that we'll continue to grow by finding the audience that needs us, by continuing. So, your part in that, of course, is that you can share this, and we, of course, will continue to be here, but that's the goal, is to help women with cancer, with metastatic cancer. I don't know how much differentiation there needs to be. I go back and forth with this, right? Because, I know people I know that any cancer diagnosis can knock you off your feet. I totally get that. I also feel like there's a little bit of a separation between those of us who are metastatic and people earlier stages, because nobody really wants to be us, Mm-hmm. But the fact is, honestly, we're all trying to live the healthiest, happiest lives we can, right? And to live with cancer in whatever way, shape, or form that is. So we're going to continue to talk about things that, I don't know. I don't care. I guess I'm okay if you get a little mad about things, because, man, anger can be fuel. And when used appropriately, I think it also can be a great jumping off point for some big decisions and big changes. And ultimately, I think cancer can be also that jumping off point of, okay, if I would always think about, like, if what I was doing previously got me to cancer, then what can I do differently to go away from it, right? Mm-hmm. So that kind of feeds into that whole return to normal and thing like that. Like, I don't want to put the pieces back in place of what got me there. I want to build a new life. So yeah. So, all right. Well, that might give you something to think about this week. We'll see you next week.
See ya.